taking up the role to become a medium. It's a very odd situation sometimes to look at older people going and asking like a 20-year-old, like, oh, I need guidance in my life, So it's really a long process. So I'm not exactly sure when exactly the documentary will be done because right now funding is a problem. Because a lot of people, when they realize that the documentary touches on so many things, as even Islam in this country, they're very hesitant. Immediately they pull back. But what you can do is just go to the President's Media blog, where I write regularly, not only about Datuk Bro, but also about its relation to Malaysian culture and also about race relations.
Wonderful. That's very good to know. And in fact, I think we should also keep track with the progress of Datuk Bro and the forum organized by Islamic Muslim Front, and of course the approach that is suggested by YB UBA. Alright, I think we can actually stretch 10 minutes for Q&A session. Alright. Is that a mic? Can we pass the mic to Stephen? Can we get a mic for
what?
Microphone.
There's no more microphone, there's only two. There's only two.
I hope we can come up with short questions and not mini lecture.
Thank you. Hi everyone, my name is Forrest. I have a concern I want to share with all the panels, relating mostly to the first speaker's Anas topic. My concern I want to share with two examples. The first being that practices within Malaysia, the specific practices of the Friday sermons for Muslims especially, it is growing to become the trending, the topic that's been circulated within the Friday sermons is becoming very unhealthy. In a sense that it's very specific, too narrow in my point of view. That is one example. The second example is that in our schools today, for primary schools, secondary schools, we see a growing trend of Islamization where there are certain places where people can eat, people cannot eat, where people can break fast or people cannot break fast, where the practices of slaughtering is being imposed on everyone. That is one example. The difference between these two is that for the latter example, regarding the schools, it is very clear cut that we can oppose it because it is against our belief of imposing it against imposing down people's throat. But with reference to the first example, the Friday sermon, even among Muslims, it's becoming very uncomfortable that we know it's very unhealthy to be thinking in such narrow scope, but we don't know quite sure what we can do about it. Because it's becoming more entrenched in our daily life in ways that maybe we have not dealt with before, but it's becoming very dangerous in the broad sense of them. So I'd like to get maybe any speakers' point of view during this song. Thank you.
Okay, voice was it? Okay, alright. Yes, Islamization in the present context, which is happening in Malaysia, is pretty much something to be worried about. Yeah, in schools we do see how the Islamic education subject is being taught to students is very narrow, which in many ways try to prohibit the elements of critical thinking within students, especially the Muslim students, as they are the recipients of this education, which goes antithesis to what Muslim scholars in the past did. What we tend to forget among Muslims, especially, and for the information of fellow non-Muslims in general, is that we have the tradition called al-mantiq in Islam, which is the discourse of logic. Logic has been a prerequisite for any Muslim scholar to learn and to apply it in coming up with ijtihad and fatwa, meaning in coming up with academic opinions, and fatwa are legal judgments. what more so than judgment by a party, which is a judge. Now, unfortunately, this element of education, element in, I would say, capacity building for students with regards to understanding religion for the Muslims have been taken out and causing a huge stagnation or thinking capacity to be developed with regards to understanding religion itself. If you'd like to elaborate further on the situation of, following the issue of the khutbah, the primary service which is happening in Malaysia, where it is becoming a platform of, unfortunately, very right-wing view propaganda on Islam. This is also a very huge concern, as if you look at this, what they are trying to preach is basically only a one-sided view which has been tapered, controlled, trying to impose only one form of understanding of Islam to the Malaysian public. Generally, what we keep hearing is that, as stated in recent that they wanted to make Islam in Malaysia is Islam Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah. It actually has a very noble meaning, that the followers of the tradition and the Jama'ah means a group, something like that. Okay, which they are trying to portray it as being opposed to the Shias, for example. However, in doing so, the biggest mistake done by people who try to impose such view of Islam is that on a global level, Muslim scholars, Muslim leaders all over the world have agreed to what is known as the Amman message. Now, the Amman message has stated that at the present moment, at the present time, 8 schools of thought of Islam are recognized as legitimate, and subscribing to any of these schools of thought would not render a Muslim be called an apostate or deviated from the teachings of Islam. There are historical reasons why it is mentioned 8 schools. It is because out of, I've read before, traditionally even reached like more than 12 schools of thought. But what survived today is at least 8. So these scholars, the leaders of these communities as well, have come together to promote, propagate, and insist that all of these schools of thought, which include Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah, which include Shia, which include a few other schools of thought, are legitimate, and you cannot say if a person who subscribes, who's like maybe an Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah, to put it simple, like an Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah subscriber cannot say a Shia has deviated from Islam, which what we see is happening in Malaysia is something to be worried about. I think the biggest challenge right now is that because from the school days, Islamic education has been made as an imposition of dogma without being room of critical thought for students. The generations of Muslims nowadays are simply just subscribing to this point, which makes them less critical and not unwilling to speak out when at present we see people are trying to portray only one school of thought is correct in Malaysia and any other school of thought is wrong, deviated from Islam, when in reality we we are the ones who are doing this are in the wrong. But since from school we have not been taught, the Muslims have not been taught to be critical, we are unwilling to speak out. Now this is the challenge, which is why the reform Islamic education is crucial. Not just given the fact that I cannot really say that we have the brightest minds who are teaching Islamic education in this country. As a matter of fact, I got A1 for my non-Islamic education. I studied Quran and Sunnah. But yeah, I'm not the one running the Jabatan Agama Islam lah, for instance. It's hard to say that can we really actually appreciate the actions taken by the authorities when they are trying to promote Islam. Are they really up to the task? When as I just shared just now, an example that we have at least 8 legal schools or legitimate schools of Islam, but we only subscribe to one, and I'm trying to say that the others are wrong. Did that answer your question? Okay.
To answer your question, your name again?
France.
Very good concern. I think I'm very amazed and I'm actually very happy that you, as a young person, a Malay, and probably a product of the school, that you will still be so open-minded. And that means to say there will be a lot of people that share the same thoughts as you. Alright, there is still hope. But overall, I think we are the product of an education system, of which we get enlightened probably after we go on internet, right? Internet, you do more readings, you make more friends, or you go overseas. This is how you get enlightened, and I got enlightened, right? We are all the products of the system, and the only thing we can do is an overall education system that is to put the best, the education expert in the education system, not the politician. This is the right thing to do, and I think with the reform that we can have, like we can completely change a generation with the right school and the right school of thoughts. Just like our generation, why our generation think this way is because how we brought up. And the moment we change our education is when our next generation will behave differently like we do. And for your Friday sermon, I might not be able to speak like him like academic, but I can share some of the thoughts that I have with sermons, not Friday sermons, mine is Sunday sermons. I hope you're okay with that. Mine is Sunday sermon, I go to service, right? Christian go to service. Sometimes you think that the pastor is not preaching right, or you need more spiritual food than this. What I do, and maybe you can refer, is to go online. You can always YouTube it. You can YouTube it, and especially if you think that Malaysia is such a country where, according to your view, is that they are narrow-minded, share with your friends the open-minded preaching from other countries or from other parts of Malaysia with your friends, so that we all grow in open-mindedness, and this is how we can actually be an influence in our own circle. I think this is what you can do as an individual, alright?
Thank you. Next question.
Hello, my name is Najib. I would like to ask if anyone is regarding to the role of religion in our society. I think the greatest concern among us is not religion per se, but the institutionalized form of religion, where we can see that state and institution use religion to perpetuate their political ideology. But somehow we have to acknowledge the fact that religion has become a potent force to mobilize political support. We can say even Martin Luther King, he was a pastor, he was a very influence, as well as we can say that the problems is when religion has become too politicized. Yeah, and is there any limitations or even do they have any limitations to whether religion could or whether religion go to the public spheres and be hotly debated? Is there any limitation so we can control whether there were some people that try to incite violence or even hatred through religion? Is there any way we can control that particular method? Okay, thank you.
Just a short one. Martin Luther King, yes, he's a preacher and he's a pastor. But I think what moved so many people is not the sermon, it's the value that he's fighting for. So the ultimate thing is the aspiration and the dream that he's fighting for, and that is a universal value. And we all have that. And whether it is from scripture or from Quran, it is a universal value that we are fighting for. So that is Martin Luther King. And what is the second question? The limitation. The European countries are now trying to limit the power of religion by saying that this is a secular state. You go to school, you have to remove your headscarf. Even to that extent, and that is secularism, and that is extreme secularism to my belief, because I stand as a belief that we should not limit anybody to do anything if it is within the value. And violence is a universal value of no to violence. So whether you are extremist of Islam, Christian or Buddhist extremist, violence itself is actually not tolerable as a universal value of a society. So it's the whole idea is about a universal value of which everybody of different faith share. So yeah.
My stand on it is, as I mentioned earlier, I think you should just keep religion out of everything. We shouldn't be including it in things, because fundamentally, religion is a personal thing, and it's about belief in, let's say if you look at the major religion, look at Islam, right? It's belief in God. We take for granted that everyone in the world believes in God. That's not the case. People, Christianity and Islam, they themselves cannot come into agreement as to who they're talking about, which God is they're talking about. My take on it is still the same. Keep religion out of it. We are now talking about how we can limit or how we can include Islam into things that we are, into the administration of the country. I think it should be, I don't think we should be talking about it. It's just my stand. But in regards to both questions actually, I think it falls onto us to speak up. It falls onto us to respond to things and say our piece on it. Because back then, a long time ago, all this voicing out your opinion was limited to only certain people in the public. Only certain people could write a letter, have their name with law, something, and that will be published in magazines and newspapers. But now everyone can have their piece. Everyone can say things. But that also comes with its own danger. Educating yourself is also extremely important. And my advice normally to people is that, yes, through the internet you can educate yourself, but don't take it wholeheartedly. Be responsible in the information that you are receiving and spreading. That's extremely important. Wikipedia was written by people, you know. It's just people going online and typing stuff into Wikipedia. So whatever that we take from those articles cannot be a citable source. Wikipedia is not a citable source. So I think that whenever you're concerned about a particular issue, go to the right source. Take the opinion of people, learned people, the people who really know about things. Go and ask their opinion. And then once you get their opinion, right, go back to the source and then understand it for yourself. Don't just take their opinion. It's like, yeah, this one must be right. Don't do that. That will also create actually a problem. So I think it's extremely important for Malaysians really to educate themselves. Our education system is garbage. It's complete garbage. Our history, how we study history is rubbish. Really, really rubbish. A lot of us, we grow up hating history because of how we have to study it. And only a small group go out of their way, after they come out of school, right, they go out of their way to go and re-look at history, to go and re-educate themselves. Now this is a very important form of activism that is happening in Malaysia, re-educating ourselves. So I think in response to issues like this, when we find something that is wrong, that is the best that we can do, empower ourselves with knowledge. And when you have that knowledge, empower those around you to make informed decisions.
Okay. Firstly, allow me to share what is my personal opinion of what religion is. I would say, if you look back at how religion emerged, all religion, I would say, it was basically a means for people to find meaning in life in a drastically changing society. They needed to find meaning to be able to live their life in the best way possible within their current circumstances, which makes religion, in times of their emergencies, they were a force which tried to shape society to be better. It was a very progressive force. Yet, within, and I would say this applies to all religion, Islam is one. When the Arabs, during their age of ignorance, for example, women are treated really like garbage. Other people who are not from their same clans are treated like they are women. There is even an Arab proverb which means it goes like al-jar of the dog, al-rafiq of the tariq. Okay, which means you are my neighbors before you move into your own abode. You are my friend before you are on the road. Where simply meaning that while you are my neighbor, okay, I'll treat you well, but once like you move to a different place, you can easily be killed by me. Right now, you are my friend, but once you are on the road, because I actually have a profession as a robber, don't blame me, I kill you. That was how the Arab society was. And when Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, came, he tried to change such situation which was prevalent within the Arab culture. And the same goes for Prophet Jesus. With his preaching of Christianity, Prophet Moses, when he preached to what is now known as Judaism, Buddha also did the same thing. Confucius did the same thing, trying to make their societies better in times of turbulences during their time. But that was how religion was back then. It is an undeniable truth that religions do become institutionalized within time. And we do see through history when religions became institutionalized, atrocities happened. It happened back then in Europe during the Middle Ages. It is happening now within Muslim societies. Now, also, in particular Malaysia, we do see how institutionalized religion through the Islamization agenda is affecting us. I mentioned earlier, it has mixed results. There are some good things, but the good things, I would say, is being outweighed by more detrimental aspects of it, especially with regards to community relations, which is happening in Malaysia. Now, of course, for that, we need to find a way how the institutionalization of religion can be neutralized so that religion does not become in control of the hand of a certain elite, regardless of how intelligent those elites are, but it does not become under their control. Religion must be brought back to the masses so that people can build their own understanding of religion themselves, where eventually what is important is that the outcome of your belief, that when, regardless of what religion you subscribe to, what matters is that with that religion, how do you affect the people around you? Now this of course we lead back to the discussion where we want to see how religion can be limited in the discussion within the public sphere. So I guess just to wrap it up, simply put, that can only be known if we have a dialogue and discuss about it to find a solution. There's no black and white guideline that to say where should the limit lie. What we need is to talk about it. So with that.
Okay, maybe we have time for final question. Last final question. Oh, we have a winner.
Good evening. My question is, in the light of next year's impending economic problems, especially with the tapering in America, how I see it is the economy might get worse. Now, with a worsening economy, people will look to religion. How would you see religion adapt, evolve, or revolve around the lives of ordinary Malaysians vis-a-vis the effects of globalization?
Okay, can I just respond to your question very briefly, because I think we need to also explain about the kind of context we're talking about when it comes to economy, when it comes to recession, when it comes to religion, and when it comes to the growth that we're looking at from religion as well. So, yeah.
How I see it is, with every economic recession, people tend to get more religious. Because money, at the end of the day, is the monetary goal, is the ethos of life. Right? That's not where I'm coming from. Right? So I see how does religion affect us because of the monetary connotations.
I personally do not foresee a major riots in Malaysia in an economic recession, even at this situation right now, because we have a lot of right-minded Malays and right-minded Muslims. When we talk about extremism, probably in Malaysia, it's probably talking about extremism. I do not foresee that there is any extremism, or the violence will be at a very local level instead of national level violence. However, I would think that for us as a Chinese or for minorities, we don't have a role to play controlling this. The only people that can control extremism and Muslim are the Muslims themselves. So if you're a Muslim here and if you're a Malay Muslim, you should stand and always say no to violence, no matter what. Because we as an outsider, we do not have a say in their group. At this moment, practical time, so we don't have a say. So I will encourage all of you who are here, play an active role, get your friends to play that active role as well. Then we will be able to make Malaysia a peaceful nation.
More response?
My take on it.
This is a short one, right?
Yeah, sure. I think yes, people will become more religious. I think the fact that we are all here just talking about Islam itself really shows how everything revolves around that one particular religion, right? So I think that cutting that aside, leaving the Middle East and Muslims aside, I'd like to just make a comment that I think, from my own observation, I think that Christianity will make a leap forward because of how aggressive they have been in always in what we call it in preaching. And I think Christianity has always provided that platform. They've always sort of specialized in that. It's like, hey, you know you're having financial problems, you're having all these problems, I've got a solution for you. That has always been that way. And also because after the Malays and the Muslims, you have the Chinese, which is the largest, second largest segment ethnic group in Malaysia. So I foresee a shift, whether it's from Buddhism or Taoism, to something more concrete, right? Because among the Chinese, there's a bit of ambiguity. You ask them and they're not really sure, like Chinese religion, yeah, what Chinese religion you're following? I'm not really sure. Something like mixture of Buddhism, Taoism, Confucianism, bit of other things here and there. But they would, the way I see it is that Christianity will be the dominant religion and people will abandon smaller religions in favor of something that is bigger because of the power of community. That's my take on it.
On behalf of Muslims, not really I'm talking on behalf of all Muslims, but basically this is an analysis which I can see is taking place. As a matter of fact, a few months ago when the petrol hike was announced by the government, a very prominent Muslim scholar under the name of Fathul Bari Majahaya, he has announced, not really his announced, he preached that this is the will of God. So just embrace it. Just to add spice to this, he's basically an UMNO member and he has the Institute Latihan Kepemimpinan Muda UMNO or something like that. So it's like trying to be like the head of like UMNO's religious religion bureau or something like that. That was what he said. Yet at the same time, he was lambasted by more scholars within the Muslim fraternity, where he started saying about the responses saying that such an issue of economic mismanagement cannot be simply attributed that this is the will of God and just have to embrace it. An economic matter is basically human judgment. It's basically how we manage our resources to get to gain whatever fuel or whatever products, goods or services that we actually want to have. Basically, that's in general the definition of what economy is. So it is a human endeavor, and within Islam, God really said that Inna Allah la yughayyiru ma biqawmin hatta yughayyiru ma bi anfusihim, which means God will not change whatever the fortune of a certain group of people until they take charge of changing the fortunes themselves. Which means humans are going to be the ones affecting their own livelihood, how the economy would form. Now, coming to the situation where whether this will lead, should an economic downturn come within the next year or so. What we can witness is that the fact that being religious, you need to understand is that we have these two camps, and these camps would actually, what I would say, it can be discerned between the haves and the have-nots, and the haves and the have-nots will apply their own understanding of religion to suit their own agenda. So it's not like simply like when an economic downturn happens, we see everybody, especially among the Muslim community, go to the mosque and start praying. That's not what we are going to see. Perhaps it's just stay constant as how like we are seeing today. But what we are going to witness is the discourse. The haves are definitely going to say like, this is what God has decided, so just bear with it. But of course, the have-nots will see this matter differently, and that is where we should take note. We will not, at the moment, I will not say that the have-nots would start rioting. That has not been a trademark of Malaysians. That even in economic downturn, we start going down the streets and smashing windows. But of course, there will be latent anger within this group of people. And religion will be a driving force for them, not to say that would get them to carry out more rituals, but it would shape how they view the society and the current predicament that they are in.
Thank you very much, Jonas, Mahir, and Barbie Yubi. And I think that is the end of our Q&A session.
Yeah, we have.
And we shall now proceed